The housing crisis in China explained. China's economy is in deep trouble. A housing crisis that has been simmering for years is now coming to a head and could lead to an economic collapse. Tens of thousands of people are boycotting their mortgage payments, developers are defaulting on debt, and the banking system is now under huge financial stress. Well, every one of us has heard about the Great Wall of China, but hardly anyone has come across the Great Housing Crisis of China. You're going to hear it soon. Watch this video to know the story of the Great Housing Crisis. The Great Housing Crisis. Have you ever heard of a Ponzi scheme? No? That's okay if you haven't. It's basically a fraudulent investment operation that pays returns to its investors from their own money or the money paid by subsequent investors, rather than from any actual profit earned by the scheme. But the question is, how are Ponzi schemes related to the Chinese housing crisis? Well, the Chinese housing boom in one way or the other overlaps with Ponzi schemes, if not completely. Since the introduction of economic reforms in 1978, China's GDP has risen at an epic rate. At its peak of economic miracle, people started rushing into the cities to meet the demands of growing industries. Soon, it became impossible for middle-income Chinese to afford decent housing in a city area. Developers saw this as an opportunity. They raised enormous amounts of money to build apartments, houses, skyscrapers, and even ghost cities to provide affordable living. The problem was that many of these unsold homes have been purchased with debt, meaning that developers are now struggling to make their loan repayments. This is leading to an increase in defaults, and a growing number of developers are now facing bankruptcy. Since the real estate market was growing similarly to the fate of the overall Chinese economy, so was the needs of housing. People speculated that the need for housing would continue to grow for the very reason they invested heavily in the industry. Speculators further drove up prices by buying properties as investments, betting that they would continue to increase in value. You might be amazed to know the fact that real estate accounts for 18 to 25% of the whole Chinese economy. This was something President Xi Jinping was not a fan of, so he decided to deflate the housing bubble, which had been ramping up for decades. So, to decrease the dependence on overpowering property sectors and to regulate the speculative housing prices, President Xi introduced the 3 Red Lines policy. Under the new 3 Red Lines policy, it became very difficult for developers to acquire loans from banks. Real estate companies needed to have excellent financial health, such as a 100% cap on debt to equity, which was practically impossible for many real estate companies. It was reported that more than half of the real estate companies did not fulfill the said criteria. So a lot of developers started to struggle, and many of them went bankrupt. As a result of these policies, the sales of new homes in China have collapsed, leading to mass layoffs in the construction industry and a huge oversupply of unsold homes. This has caused prices to fall sharply in many cities, with some analysts predicting that they could fall by as much as 50% in the next few years. Let's take the example of the biggest real estate company in the world, Evergrande. Currently, as a result of these policies and issues, Evergrande is at risk of defaulting on its debt payments. This would be a disastrous outcome for the company and could trigger a financial crisis in China. Evergrande's problems highlight the severity of the housing crisis in China and underscore the need for the government to take urgent action. Also, the banking system is under immense strain, with bad loans rising to their highest level in a decade. The situation is so dire that some analysts are now warning that China's economy could be on the verge of collapse. So far, the government has taken some measures to prop up the housing market, such as cutting interest rates and injecting billions of dollars into the banking system. However, it's not clear whether these measures will be enough to avert a major crisis. In the meantime, tens of thousands of people are boycotting their mortgage payments, developers are defaulting on their debt, and the banking system is under immense financial stress. If the situation doesn't improve soon, China's economy could be in for a very rough ride. The impact of the Chinese housing crisis on the globe. The recent housing crisis in China has caused many economists to worry about the potential impacts on the global economy. The Chinese housing market has been one of the fastest growing markets in the world in recent years, and a sharp slowdown could have ripple effects throughout the global economy. For one thing, it could lead to a decrease in demand for raw materials and other commodities as construction activity slows down. This could put downward pressure on the prices of these goods and hurt commodity-producing economies that depend on China as a major consumer. Additionally, a slowdown in the Chinese housing market could lead to more defaults and bankruptcies among developers, which could lead to a wave of bad loans for banks. This could cause a tightening of lending conditions and a slowdown in credit growth, which would have knock-on effects for the global economy. Finally, a sharp decrease in the housing prices in China could lead to a decrease in consumer confidence and a slowdown in spending, which would also have negative impacts on the global economy. Overall, the housing crisis in China is a major concern for the global economy, and it remains to be seen how severe the impacts will be. However, it is clear that a continued decline in the Chinese housing market could have a significant effect on global economies. Conclusion: the housing crisis in China is a major problem that could have severe implications for the global economy as well. The Chinese government needs to take urgent action to address the issue, or else the country's economy could be in for a very rough ride. I would love if you could like and share the video before subscribing the channel, provided you enjoyed the video. This would help us in reaching 1,000,000 miles. Thanks for watching.